Welcome, everyone, to Navigating Medicare, your guide to open enrollment success. We'll begin in just a moment to allow everyone who registered to get situated before we start. So we'll start in just a minute. And attendees who are coming in, welcome to Navigating Medicare. We'll get started in just a few moments. All right, let's kick things off. Welcome to Navigating Medicare, your guide to open enrollment success, co-hosted by TMG and Chapter, TMG's official Medicare partner. Let me go through a quick disclaimer. The purpose of this presentation is entirely educational. We're not going to get into any specific insurance company or any specific plan, but by virtue of attending this presentation, you will be afforded a chance to book a one-on-one consultation with the chapter team. There's no charge for the consult, and there we can get into your specifics, and I'm going to go through that during the course of the presentation. So my name is Ari Parker. I'm the co-founder and head of Medicare at Chapter, the only unbiased independent Medicare advisory in the country. And that's why TMG has decided to make us their official Medicare partner. What's important is that you know that in 48 hours, you're going to get the chance to review your Medicare coverage. The annual enrollment period begins October 15th and it ends December 7th. So if you take away anything from this presentation, it's the importance of reviewing your coverage between October 15th and December 7th. And by virtue of attending this presentation, you're certainly going to avoid all those costly Medicare mistakes that your friends and loved ones may have made. So our agenda for today is we're going to go over the basics of Medicare. Then we're going to talk about your two options for additional coverage, either Medigap or Medicare Advantage. We'll talk about the difference between the two. And then finally, we'll talk about preparing for the annual enrollment period, which begins October 15th, and some exciting changes that are on the horizon, but you need to review your coverage in order to action them. If you have questions about anything that I present on today, by virtue of attending this presentation, we are going to offer you a complimentary copy of my best-selling book, It's Not That Complicated. And we're going to give you an updated version of the book. It's been updated for this year. If you scan that QR code and you enter your email address, we're going to send you a copy of the book. And if you miss the QR code, don't worry, I'm going to return to it at the end of the presentation. And I only have about 25 minutes of material to present. And by the end of the 25 minutes, you're going to be more knowledgeable than 99% of people about Medicare. So thank you so much for attending today's presentation. Let's get into it. Picture Medicare as a three-legged stool, three legs like you might have seen on Cheers. The first leg is your hospital coverage. This is what happens to you when you're inpatient. The second leg of the stool is your outpatient coverage. That is everything outside the hospital. And then the third leg of the stool is your drug coverage. Now, each of these legs corresponds to a part. Hospital, Part A. Outpatient, Part B. And finally, drug coverage, Part D. D is in drugs. Those are the three legs of the stools. Let me break this down a bit further. Medicare Part A covers you when you're inpatient at the hospital. It means you have a wristband. And if you don't get a wristband, then you're being held for observation, which Medicare doesn't cover. So make sure if you go to the hospital that you receive a wristband. It also covers skilled nursing facility care, home health care, and hospice care. That's all covered under Medicare Part A. You might be wondering, sounds great. How's it paid for? Well, it's paid for through your federal payroll taxes. If you or your spouse has worked 10 plus years and paid federal payroll taxes, then there's no monthly charge for Medicare Part A. No monthly charge. Now, there is a deductible for each hospitalization. It's substantial, but we'll talk about how to cover that when we get into the discussion around additional coverage. Now let's turn to the second leg of the stool, Medicare Part B, your outpatient coverage. This is visits to your primary care doctor, visits to specialists, lab work, x-rays, MRIs, CT scans, even durable medical equipment, like a heart monitor, a continuous glucose monitor, a wheelchair, or a walker goes to Medicare Part B. Now, there's a monthly charge for Part B. Most Americans pay $185 per month for Medicare Part B. That's the standard Part B premium for 2025, $185 per month. And if you and your spouse are each on Medicare Part B, then you owe $185 each. There's no Medicare family plan. Now, if you're a high earner, you're going to pay more for Medicare Part B. We'll talk about that at the end of the presentation. But Medicare Part B is very comprehensive. It's excellent health insurance. There's a big misconception that Medicare isn't good health insurance. It's excellent health insurance. But here's the thing. There's no Medicare family plan. And in return for paying that $185 per month to Uncle Sam, you get 80-20 coinsurance. So the government picks up 80% and you owe 20% out of pocket. So in unison, Medicare Part A and Medicare Part B are referred to as original Medicare because these are the twin pillars that were established 60 years ago. Now, there are two big ticket items that original Medicare doesn't cover. The first is that your exposure is uncapped on the 20% you owe out of pocket. So my mom lives in the Chicagoland area. She needed a knee replacement last summer. It's a $50,000 procedure in Chicago. My mom would have owed $10,000 out of pocket had she not had some type of additional coverage. The very next month, she slipped and broke her elbow. She would have owed 20% for everything related to her elbow as well. So it's very important that you get some type of additional coverage to insure against the 20% you owe out of pocket. The second big ticket item that original Medicare doesn't cover is long-term care. Long-term care is defined by the activities of daily living, eating, bathing, dressing, even cognitive decline goes to long-term care. There is no coverage under original Medicare for long-term care. Now, long-term care is known under synonyms: around-the-clock care, 24/7 care, custodial care, nursing care. These are all terms for long-term care, and there is no coverage under original Medicare for long-term care. The best time to have a conversation around long-term care is in your 40s or your 50s with your TMG advisor. Because by the time you reach Medicare eligibility at 65, it's oftentimes too late and too expensive to insure against long-term care. So make sure that you have that discussion in your late 50s. Now let's turn to the final leg of the stool, Part D. D as in drugs. Even if you don't take any prescriptions, you should strongly consider getting Part D because there are late enrollment penalties if you don't sign up for Medicare Part D, if you don't have drug coverage, and these are lifetime penalties. So even if you don't take prescriptions, it's important to make sure that you have drug coverage because what happens if you have a drug added during the course of the year? What happens if in 3 to 5 years you need an expensive prescription? Then you would certainly want Part D, and you wouldn't want to owe a lifetime late enrollment penalty in order to get it. So we're going to talk about how to sign up for Part D coverage. Moreover, there are exciting improvements on the horizon to Medicare Part D. There are 3 substantial changes that go into effect January 1st, and in order to action them, you need to review your coverage by December 7th. So the first change that's on the horizon is that there's going to be a maximum annual out-of-pocket cap of $2,100 for 2026. So the most you'll owe for your prescriptions is $2,100 for next year if you choose a plan that covers each of your prescriptions. But if you choose a plan that doesn't cover all of your prescriptions, then you'll owe an uncapped amount for that uncovered prescription. So we want to make sure that we review your prescription coverage for 2026. The second improvement that's on the horizon is previously when seniors went to fill their medications, they could have owed thousands of dollars at the beginning of the year if they were on an expensive brand name or specialty medication. That's no longer the case. Now, prescription drug companies are going to automatically enroll you in smoothing throughout the year. So if you do owe $2,100 for your prescriptions or you come close to that amount, then you're going to owe just less than $200 per month over the course of the year, rather than to fork over thousands of dollars at the beginning of the year. And that change is automatically going into effect for 2026. And then the third change that I want to note is that Medicare will be negotiating the price of certain medications on your behalf. If you take one of the 10 prescriptions that Medicare has selected for price negotiations, then you're going to see big savings starting January 1st. So the key question that I want you to have in the back of your mind is how will you cover the 20% that original Medicare doesn't cover? Remember, at most, if you have original Medicare, then Uncle Sam is only paying 80% of your medical expenses. You owe the other 20% out of pocket. And what's more is the government doesn't provide you with prescription coverage. It's something you have to sign up for through a private insurance company. So there are 24,000 different plans to choose from nationwide. Here at Chapter, we help you evaluate every insurance company and every plan option available in your zip code. And here's how we do it. We do it by breaking your options into one of two categories. Option one is to keep original Medicare and add a Medicare supplement plan, which is also known as Medigap. This sits on top of original Medicare and covers the 20% that you would otherwise owe out of pocket. If you choose option one, then all you need to do is add a standalone prescription drug plan. So that's option one. Medicare supplement and Medigap, those are synonymous terms, potato, potato. Then there's option two. Option two is what you see advertised on television. You could pick your favorite Medicare Advantage spokesperson, Joe Namath, William Shatner, Jimmy Walker, the list goes on. They're talking about Medicare Advantage plans, which are a replacement for original Medicare administered by a private insurance company. This is managed care. Here's where we're in the world of HMOs or PPOs, unlike original Medicare, which is networkless. Now, what people like about Medicare Advantage is that it's all-in-one coverage. It often includes prescriptions, and some plans include dental, vision, and hearing. But what people like a lot less is that it's managed care. It's subject to the private insurance company's terms and conditions. It's subject to the private insurance company's network restrictions. And it's subject to the private insurance company's veto on what type of coverage that you can get, which is called prior authorization. And there were over 50 million prior authorization claims in 2023 alone. So if you want the most flexible and comprehensive coverage, then consider option one, which is what most TMG clients tend to choose. Here's why most TMG clients choose option one, which is Medigap and a standalone prescription drug plan. First, you appreciate not having to worry about whether your doctor is in or out of network. It's better than a PPO. It's networkless. You can see any doctor or institution that accepts original Medicare nationwide. The second reason most TMG clients tend to choose option one is because they appreciate the freedom to see any specialist they want nationwide without a referral. There's no one who can veto the coverage that you want to receive. You can go to the Mayo Clinic, the Cleveland Clinic, MD Anderson, no problem. Another reason that TMG clients tend to choose Medigap is because of the cost certainty. For this year, your deductible would be $257 because that's the Part B annual deductible, $257 for 2025. If you compare that to my work-provided insurance, my wife, daughter, and I don't see a dollar of benefit until we hit our $6,000 deductible. Under Medicare, your deductible is $257. And guess what? That is also your maximum out-of-pocket for 2025. $257 if you choose option one. That's incredible. I can't wait to be on Medicare. And then finally, option one is designed to last a lifetime. The way I train our team here at Chapter is marry your Medigap, date your drug plan. The Medigap plan that you first sign up for when you turn 65 or when you start Medicare if you're past 65 will probably be the plan that you have for the long haul. So you're making a 30 to 35 year purchasing decision. But every fall, we want to come back and review your drug plan. So marry your Medigap and date your drug plan. And the time to date your drug plan is the fall between October 15th and December 7th. So let me speak briefly about the most comprehensive Medigap plan letter type for someone who's turning 65. It's plan letter G. G is in George. And under plan G, you won't have any network restrictions. You won't need a referral in order to see a specialist. It works nationwide. There's cost certainty. Once you hit your $257 deductible, you will not see another Medicare-approved expense thereafter. So $257 is also your maximum out-of-pocket for 2025, which blows many people's minds because it's so low. And then finally, Medigap Plan G includes 80% international coverage when you travel abroad for the first 60 days that you're outside the United States. Now, this really helped a client who was vacationing in France over the summer. They suffered a heart condition. They were hospitalized for nearly 2 weeks outside Paris, and they racked up $30,000 in hospital bills. Because they were on Medigap Plan Letter G, they were able to receive 80% reimbursement. So it didn't ruin their trip. They received $24,000 in reimbursement. And that's something that I want to emphasize here. When you work with the chapter team, you're not just supported by the Medicare advisor that you work with, you're also supported by our member advocate team, which is your first line of defense for any hiccups that come up with your coverage. So if you misplace your ID card, you just call our member advocate team. If you have a question about a claims invoice, you call our member advocate team. If you're at the pharmacy and you're charged an outrageous copay, we'll fight the insurance company on your behalf to get to ground truth. So I want you to know that at Chapter, our support is ongoing and it's concierge. And so that's just something I want to mention. There's no charge to work with a Medicare advisor, but make sure you're working with someone who's independent, unbiased, and provides ongoing support. So let me talk about how we help you review what type of coverage to be on. Our advisors use the 3P framework. Your 3Ps are first, your providers. What doctors do you want to see? What institutions do you want to go to? For example, Rush, Northwestern, or UChicago. The second P is your prescriptions. What medications do you take? Brand name or generic? What pharmacy do you like to go to? A national chain or a mom and pop drugstore? And finally, the third P is your priorities. What's important to you? Do you own a second home in a different state? Do you winter in Florida or Arizona? Do you have grandchildren on the way? Do you plan to travel internationally? All of this factors into finding the single best fitting coverage for your needs, and that's something that you'll speak about in a one-on-one consult with one of our Medicare advisors. So with that, let me turn to the Medicare annual enrollment period, which starts in 2 days. It starts October 15th. So if you've been watching this presentation and you're on a Medicare Advantage plan, the Medicare annual enrollment period is the time for you to review and adjust your coverage under that Medicare Advantage plan. If you say, wow, I wasn't aware of option 1, I wasn't aware of Medigap, then guess what? Your time to adjust your coverage is in 2 days. And you have until December 7th in order to action any change. If you're already on option 1, then use the Medicare annual enrollment period in order to review your standalone prescription drug plan. It only takes 15 minutes in order to do so. And on average, we help you save $1,100 with your healthcare costs just by reviewing your prescriptions. So you certainly want to take advantage of that. A question in advance of the presentation: I like my current plan. Do I still need to schedule a Medicare consult? You know the answer at this point is that it's highly recommended because the plans change every year. Medigap doesn't change. Medigap is standardized under federal law, but the standalone prescription drug plans change. There are new regulations going into effect for next year. And you certainly know at this point that Medicare Advantage plans change year over year. Your doctor networks change under Medicare Advantage plans. The benefits offered by the plans, by Medicare Advantage plans change. And under Medicare Advantage, it's subject to the insurance company's terms and conditions. So even if you liked your plan last year, it might be changing in a way that's suboptimal for you for next year. So what I recommend, and here's a short checklist in order to prepare, is first, if you're already on Medicare, then over the past month, you should have received your annual notice of change. This will describe how your standalone prescription drug plan or your Medicare Advantage plan is changing for 2026. Second, write out your 3Ps. Write out the providers you want to see, write out the prescriptions that you take, and finally, write out your priorities for the upcoming year. And then third and finally, schedule your free Medicare consultation with our team. And you can scan that QR code. And when you enter your information for the book, it's going to also ask you whether you'd like to speak one-on-one with one of our advisors. And of course, there's no charge to work with our team. So here's how Chapter empowers TMG clients during life transitions. First, for those of you who are turning 65, we'll help you sign up for Medicare through your online Social Security account. It takes less than 5 minutes. It's fast, safe, and secure. And then we'll walk you through your options for additional coverage. We'll help you assess the trade-offs between option 1 and option 2, and then we'll help you narrow to the single best fitting plan, help you submit all the paperwork, and then provide year-round ongoing support. Second, if you're past age 65 and you or your spouse are still working, then guess what? When you or your spouse are ready to retire, we need to help you start your Medicare. You might say, oh, but I'm planning to COBRA. COBRA isn't creditable for the purpose of delaying Medicare. COBRA is only secondary to Medicare. So you have to start Medicare. If you're retiring and you're past 65, we would be more than happy to help you get your Medicare started and then assess your options for additional coverage. And then the final bucket of clients that we support are those who are already on Medicare. If you're already on Medicare, then it's time for a tune-up, and you have between October 15th and December 7th in order to review your coverage. So with that, I'm going to turn to some frequently asked questions. But before I do, I just wanted to give you another chance to scan the QR code. So please, if you can, just like a menu at a restaurant, you can point your phone at the screen. You can scan that QR code that says scan below, and it'll offer you a complimentary copy of my short book. It's not that complicated. It'll take you less than one sitting to finish. So I'll pause here for 15 seconds. All right. The first question that was emailed in advance of the presentation was, my prescriptions haven't changed. Should I still review my coverage beginning October 15th? And my answer is yes. I would recommend taking 5 to 10 minutes to review your prescriptions, because even if your prescriptions haven't changed, the plans change and the regulations change, and we want to make sure that you're on the single best fitting plan for 2026. So I would certainly advise you to make an appointment. Second, can I use the annual enrollment period to switch to a Medigap plan? So if you've been on original Medicare and you haven't insured against the 20% you owe out of pocket, or if you've been on a Medicare Advantage plan, you can use the annual enrollment period in order to switch to a Medigap plan. Now, in 46 states, you may have to answer questions about your health history, but it's not as scary as a life insurance exam. No one comes and takes your vitals or draws your labs. Instead, it's 5 to 8 questions about your recent health history. But in 46 states, once you're outside your Medigap open enrollment period, which is the 6 months after you start Medicare, you may have to answer questions about your health history. So if you're watching this presentation and you're just turning 65, keep in mind that in 46 states, you have a one-time opportunity in order to sign up for Medigap without any questions about your health history. And if you're within your Medigap open enrollment right, that's your golden ticket to get Medigap, and a carrier can't discriminate against you for any pre-existing conditions, and they also can't charge a higher price. The 4 states that are an exception and allow you to sign up for Medigap at any time are New York, Connecticut, Massachusetts, and Maine. So the only 4 states that have an exception here are New York, Connecticut, Massachusetts, and Maine. They're all along the northern Atlantic coast. So just keep that in mind. If you are watching this presentation and you say, gee, I know I want Medigap, then make an appointment with our team and let's see if we can help you get it. I also want to note here, if you've been on Medigap Plan F is in Foxtrot, that previously was the most comprehensive Medigap plan letter type. But now Plan G is the replacement for Plan F. And Plan G and Plan F are identical with one difference. And that is Plan F covers the Part B annual deductible, which is $257 for this year, whereas Plan G does not. So if you're paying more in premiums than $257 per year, then it is probably cost advantageous for you to consider switching to Plan G. The next question is, I'm past age 65 and planning to continue working for at least another 2 to 3 years. Do I need to enroll in Medicare Part B? And the answer is no, as long as yours or your spouse's employer has 20 or more employees. Rule of 20. If your or your spouse's employer has 20 employees or more, then you can delay signing up for Medicare. And instead, your window to sign up will be when you or your spouse retire. Or if you don't like the way that your work-provided coverage is changing, you can actually sign up for Medicare at any point after you turn 65, as long as yours or your spouse's employer has 20 employees or more. Rule of 20. So if you work for a small employer with 19 employees or fewer, then you have to sign up for Medicare by way of turning 65. If you're self-employed, then you have to sign up for Medicare by way of turning 65. If you're an independent contractor, you need to sign up for Medicare by way of turning 65. And if you're on the Affordable Care Act exchange, Obamacare, you need to sign up for Medicare by way of turning 65. You actually lose your subsidies when you turn 65 if you're eligible for premium-free Part A. The only people who have an exception to delay signing up for Medicare are those who work for an employer with 20 employees or more, or your spouse does. And now let's talk about Medicare for high earners. So This attendee asks, I filed an income-related monthly adjustment amount appeal last year. Do I need to do it again for 2026? And the answer is yes, if you have a life-changing event. But first, let me provide a little context. The income-related monthly adjustment amount applies to high earners. The government considers you a high earner if looking at your tax return from 2 years ago. So for this year, the government is looking at your tax return from 2023. And if on your 2023 tax return, you are a solo filer and earned more than $106,000 modified adjusted gross income, or if you're a joint filer and earned more than $212,000 modified adjusted gross income, then you are considered a high earner and you are subject to 2 surcharges, one on Medicare Part B and one on Medicare Part D, and they're graduated. So if you have a life-changing event, then we can help you appeal your IRMA. That's the government's acronym, IRMA. All you need is a life-changing event. The 2 most common are work stoppage or work reduction. Sadly, the 3rd most common is divorce. And if you have one of these life-changing events, then we can help you appeal your IRMA and potentially save $10,000 to $12,000 per year on your IRMA. Because if it knocks down the bracket that you're in, then the government will give you a savings on what you would have owed on your Part B and Part D surcharges. But you do need a life-changing event, and having a good year in the market is not a life-changing event. So just be aware this is something that our team can help you appeal, and we'd be more than happy to discuss it with you. We are very successful at helping you file IRMA appeals, and we'd be more than happy to if you have a life-changing event and it would produce a material change in your bracket. And if you'd like a copy of this one-pager, you can just reach out to your TMG advisor and they can share it with you. So with that, I wanted to again offer you a complimentary copy of the book. And thank you so much for coming to today's webinar. Thank you so much for your participation. And please, if you do anything at all, if you're on Medicare already, remember to review your coverage between October 15th and December 7th.